Hello again, folks. Brains here. Welcome to another episode of Century 21 Tech Talk. In this briefing, we're going to be discussing the technical specifications of the Spectrum Pursuit Vehicle, or SPV. The Spectrum Pursuit Vehicle is the primary ground support vehicle used by the Spectrum organization in their continuing fight against the Mysterons from the planet Mars. It was adapted from the highly successful World Army Zeus combat tank and modified extensively for use by Spectrum. Despite its size, the SPV can reach speeds in excess of 200 miles per hour, very useful when pursuing a suspected Mysteron agent. In the event additional traction is required, the rear tracks can be deployed, enabling the SPV to cross the harshest terrain and power up the steepest of inclines. Spectrum maintains a vast fleet of SPVs at strategic locations across the world, ready for deployment at a moment's notice. A Spectrum agent may claim an SPV transport on production of an official identification pass. The local Spectrum operative will then radio Cloudbase confirming the vehicle has been collected. Most of the SPVs outside the protection of Spectrum ground bases are concealed in some of the most unlikely places imaginable, such as inside a camping trailer, a wooden shack, and even a specially built elevator platform below another vehicle. Access to an SPV's interior is by one of two hatches on either side of the vehicle. The hatch door slides outwards, and an operator's chair is lowered to the ground. Perhaps the most innovative design feature of the Spectrum Pursuit Vehicle is that it is operated with a driver facing the rear of the vehicle. This seemingly strange design choice has a very practical rationale. In the event of a collision, the occupant of the SPV will be thrown against the seat, reducing the chance of serious injury. Forward visibility is by way of twin video screens linked to external cameras. Spectrum have found the design to be most effective, although it is not infallible to the cunning of the Mysterons. On one occasion, a Mysteron agent was able to disrupt the video signal, causing the Spectrum agents to crash. The control cabin contains the SPV's variable use power pack. The most frequently used tool is the Spectrum Jetpack, a single-person hover pack, which allows agents to pursue aerial targets or reach areas inaccessible to the SPV. If a Spectrum officer needs to evacuate the vehicle in a hurry, they pull the red lever beside the seat and they will be ejected clear of the craft, with a parachute deploying at a safe altitude, allowing them to glide safely to the ground. The armor encasing a Spectrum Pursuit Vehicle is formidable, to say the least. Constructed from a top-secret alloy, the armor provides impressive protection against everything from a raging fire to a direct missile strike. The front fender of an SPV covers a helium-strengthened chassis, vital when the vehicle is called on to ram through obstacles. The nose of the SPV houses a high-powered, multi-purpose machine cannon, which is often deployed in self-defense or used to clear obstructions in the vehicle's path. Some Spectrum Pursuit vehicles retain the semi-amphibious aqua mode from the original Zeus tank prototype. While in aqua mode, an SPV can skim along the surface of a body of water at speeds reaching 50 miles per hour. Excuse me for one moment. Hello? Hello, Mr. Brains. I wondered if you would perhaps like some coffee brought to the lab? Thanks, Kirano. That would be great. Of course. I shall be with you shortly. Well, once again, we'll have to leave it there for now. I hope you found this report on the Spectrum Pursuit Vehicle useful.
Hello, and welcome to another Century 21 Tech Talk briefing with me, Jeff Tracy. In this briefing, I'll be providing details about the operation and technical specifications of the Spectrum Patrol Car, or SPC. The SPC is the fast, agile saloon used throughout the world by the Spectrum organization. It's 18 feet long, 8 feet wide, and weighs 1.5 tons. The car can travel at speeds of up to 200 miles an hour, with some later models exceeding this speed under the right conditions. As the most commonly used transport for Spectrum personnel on the ground, SPCs are located on every continent except for Antarctica. The majority of the vehicles are stored at Spectrum ground bases, maximum security buildings and airfields. Each vehicle is kept maintained and ready for action around the clock. Unlike the larger, more heavily armed Spectrum pursuit vehicles, the Spectrum patrol cars are not concealed in secret locations, but in conventional secure garages and parking bays. A maximum of 5 Spectrum officers can travel in a single patrol car in comfort and complete safety, though the vehicles are more often occupied by 1 or 2 personnel. The passenger compartment is fitted with quick-release harnesses, computer-controlled airbags, and a sturdy roll bar to protect the occupants if the car should end up on its roof. When constructing the prototype for what would become the SPC, Spectrum engineers approached Brains and asked about his revolutionary design for the BR2, the racing car Alan drove to victory in the 2065 Parola Sands charity race. While some of the BR2's specifications remain known only to International Rescue, in the spirit of cooperation, Brains shared some of the chassis and engine details with the Spectrum team. A gas turbine engine supplies power to the vehicle, while a lightweight yet durable shell provides plenty of protection for the internal systems and everyone inside. Every inch of the car is bulletproof, including the windows, which can easily protect against conventional weapons. The tires are puncture-resistant and also capable of withstanding direct hits from bullets and other projectiles. In addition to their durability, the tires are specially designed to traverse a variety of surfaces, from standard roads to dirt tracks. An aerodynamic fin sits atop the rear of the car to provide stability when traveling at high speed, another feature that was carried over from the original BR2 model. You might think the SPC's iconic wedge-shaped front is designed purely to make the car more aerodynamic, but there's more to it than that. In fact, if you would have opened the hood and look inside, you would find a hydraulic ram, specially reinforced with kahelium extract. This powerful device can be deployed through the nose cone at the very front of the vehicle, effectively turning the SPC into a high-speed ram, perfect for breaking through enemy roadblocks. The ram is not the only surprise lurking in the front of the car. A pair of machine guns are located in the wings, very similar to those installed in Fab 1. These rapid-fire weapons are rarely deployed, but can prove a force to be reckoned with when used as a last resort. Communication plays a vital role in Spectrum's effective operation, and for this reason, every SPC is fitted with a coded frequency transmitter-receiver setup. This allows crystal-clear communications between Cloudbase and the patrol car, regardless of outside interference. As I mentioned earlier, the primary role of the Spectrum patrol car is to act as a means of rapid transport for Spectrum ground forces, but the car's versatile design makes it useful for other duties too. It is a common sight as a support vehicle in Spectrum roadblocks, and is equally at home as part of an escort convoy for a maximum security vehicle or when operating solo on search and rescue missions. Since the SPC first entered service in late 2067, it has been involved in most of Spectrum's critical operations. Although the majority of Spectrum's assignments are top secret, Colonel White has given permission for me to discuss a few of these missions and the patrol car's role in them. The earliest recorded attack on a Spectrum patrol car took place shortly after the Mysterons threatened the life of the world president. Captain Scarlet and Captain Brown were assigned to escort the president as part of Spectrum's response, and traveled to New York in an SPC. Unfortunately, the Mysterons used their incredible powers to make one of the car's tires explode, causing the vehicle to crash and killing both officers. While the tragedy claimed the lives of two of Spectrum's finest officers, a twist of fate resulted in the Mysteron duplicate of Captain Scarlet becoming indestructible. While no longer under the influence of the Mysterons, he remains Spectrum's most valuable asset in the ongoing war of nerves against them. During Operation Winged Assassin, a pair of patrol cars escorted Spectrum Agent 710, posing as the Director General of the United Asian Republic. This deception allowed Captain Gray to bring the real Director General to London Airport in complete secrecy on board Spectrum's VIP transporter, Yellow Fox. When Mysteron agent Captain Black accidentally exposed himself to a harmless short-life radioactive isotope at the Culver Atomic Center, it became possible to trace his position. Using a fleet of SPCs in conjunction with long-range tracking vehicles, Spectrum were able to set up a security net to capture the enemy operative. SPCs were deployed at roadblocks along major routes in and out of the search area, and it was only due to a last-minute gambit by Black that he was able to escape Spectrum's grasp. The patrol car continues to prove a vital asset to Spectrum in its ongoing fight against the Mysterons, and I hope you enjoyed learning about it. Hello and welcome to another Century 21 Tech Talk briefing with me, Jeff Tracy. In this briefing, I'll be providing details about the operation and technical specifications of Spectrum's Angel Interceptor aircraft. The Angel Interceptor is the supersonic air superiority fighter used by Spectrum in the fight against the Mysterons from Mars. It's 60 feet in length, has a wingspan of 35 feet, and is capable of reaching velocities in excess of 3,000 miles per hour. The aircraft was developed from the latest World Air Force Viper jet and modified for use by Spectrum. These modifications included an increase in the Viper's maximum service ceiling, a strengthened airframe, and an even more advanced onboard computer system. It is vital that the designs are kept a closely guarded secret to prevent such weapons from falling into the wrong hands. To this end, no one manufacturer holds a complete set of drawings for the Angel Interceptor. Although the craft is largely assembled by international engineering, the components are brought together in separate installations, such as the fitting of the engine of the Fairfield factory in England. Once the assembly process is complete, the aircraft is moved to a final testing plant, after which it is sprayed with the appropriate colors and delivered to Spectrum's floating headquarters, Cloudbase. There are 6 Angel Interceptors on Cloudbase, 3 standing by for launch on the flight deck, and 3 others in the auxiliary hangar below. Although standard procedure calls for only 3 Angels to be operational at any one time, all 6 aircraft can be launched in cases of extreme emergency. In such an event, an experienced Spectrum captain will pilot the 6th Angel. Each interceptor is armed with the latest in airborne weapon systems. A McAllister Scott autocannon is mounted in the nose of the aircraft. This formidable weapon is highly accurate and can fire explosive rocket shells and electromagnetic pulse charges. A pair of missile batteries are positioned just forward of the cockpit, one on each side of the fuselage. The batteries have a capacity of 10 missiles, which can be configured for air-to-air or air-to-ground firing. Despite their speed and maneuverability, it is not impossible that an Angel Interceptor may be critically damaged in combat. For this reason, each craft is fitted with a Mark VI ejection seat. When activated, the Interceptor's canopy is blasted free, and powerful micro-rockets propel the pilot and chair clear of the aircraft. A parachute is deployed at a safe distance, and the pilot glides to the ground to await rescue. The chairs also contain flotation aids in the event of ejection over water. Each aircraft is flown by one of the 5 Angels, highly trained fighter pilots from all over the world: Juliette Pontoine, Diane Sims, Magnolia Jones, Chen Quan, and Karen Wainwright, better known to their Spectrum colleagues as Destiny, Rhapsody, Melody, Harmony, and Symphony. The Angels have a strict duty rota. A pilot is seated in Angel 1, the lead fighter, at all times. 2 more Angels remain on standby in the Amber Room, ready to board their aircraft at a moment's notice, while the final 2 are off duty. When a launch alert is called, Angel 1 is catapulted off the flight deck immediately and soars into the sky. If all 3 aircraft are required for an assignment, Lieutenant Green will relay the order for Angels 2 and 3 to launch. On hearing the order, the standby Angels proceed to their control chairs. The doors of the elevator close, and the pair are raised into the transport chutes. Transparent pressure seals attached to the aircraft, and the pilots are deposited into the cockpits of their interceptors. The lower fuselages are secured in place, and the pressure seals retract into the deck. The catapults fire, and the 2 aircraft blast into the atmosphere, steering on a pre-programmed course to rendezvous with Angel 1. On returning to Cloudbase, the process is reversed. The aircraft approaches the flight deck from the rear, lining up its approach and cutting its airspeed as it descends towards the landing pads. An infrared guidance beam locks onto the interceptor, and the craft follows the beam down, slowing its descent all the while. As it reaches the landing pad, an electromagnetic field pulls at the remaining few feet and secures it in place. The landing pad retracts, and the pilot disembarks back to the Amber Room. The landing gear of the Angel Interceptor is specially designed to interact with the Cloudbase launch catapult and flight deck. But the aircraft is also fitted with a conventional undercarriage. When arriving at ground airfields, wheels are deployed from concealed compartments inside the landing struts. The Angel aircraft is equipped with an advanced VTOL system, allowing it to land in the tightest spaces without the need for a runway. The Angel's versatility has made it a priceless asset to Spectrum in the fight against the Mysterons. Whether acting in the role of an air superiority fighter, a search aircraft, or Cloudbase's first line of defense, it has proved itself time and time again. However, an aircraft is only as good as its pilot, and the 5 Angel pilots continue to display remarkable skill, dedication, and courage in their service with Spectrum. That concludes the report on the Spectrum Angel Interceptor. I hope it's given you some insight into this impressive aircraft. Join me next time for another Century 21 Tech Talk briefing. See you around, folks. Hello, and welcome to another Century 21 Tech Talk briefing with me, Jeff Tracy. In this briefing, I'll be providing details about the operation and technical specifications of Spectrum's headquarters, Cloudbase. Cloudbase is a floating aerial platform that can be likened to the deck of a gigantic aircraft carrier. At 870 feet in length and weighing over 2,500 tons, it maintains altitude, by a development of the hoverjet principle. As a super-military organization, Spectrum have ground bases in strategic locations all over the world. Notable hubs include Spectrum Headquarters London and Spectrum Headquarters New York. However, Cloudbase remains the organization's primary base of operations, and it is from here that the Supreme Commander, Colonel White, directs Spectrum's response around the globe. As an airborne operations center, Cloudbase's design is twofold: to provide additional security from an attack and to enable the base's Angel aircraft squadron to be launched at operational altitudes in moments. The command center is situated at one side of the structure, accessed by a pair of service corridors within its supports. From the main control room, Colonel White can send orders to Spectrum personnel anywhere in the world, while the Spectrum Information Center computer provides access to any information required. Lieutenant Green's Spectranet computer controls many of Cloudbase's functions, and it is from here that the lieutenant issues orders to the Angel Squadron. The command center has a transparent observation tube on either side, one of which is accessed from the control room. These tubes provide unobstructed views of the carrier's deck. A helipad is situated above the command center, with direct access to the lower decks by elevator. The upper levels of the command center are also home to the promenade deck, which provides panoramic views, and the radar room. The radar room contains some of the most sophisticated tracking equipment ever developed, and it is kept constantly manned when the base is under red alert. The lower level of the command center houses administrative areas and amenities. A conference room is situated below the control room. It is from here that Colonel White will often brief his top officers on the nature of the latest Mysteron threat. A short walk from the conference room is the relaxation area, including an officer's lounge, a swimming pool, and the room of sleep. These rooms, like any room on Cloudbase with an exterior viewport, have a supply of respirator units that can be used in case of explosive decompression. Outside of the command center, the remaining areas of Cloudbase are located below the flight deck. The medical center is situated below deck, adjacent to the main helipad. The facilities on Cloudbase are equal to those found in the most modern hospitals, and the entire medical center is under the charge of Dr. Fawn. In addition to several recovery rooms, wards, and state-of-the-art operating theaters, the medical center also has decontamination and isolation areas for quarantine cases. The main generator room is located at the center of Cloudbase. Most of the technical systems are controlled from here, including the powerful hover combines at the four corners of the base. Much of the energy needed is collected from solar power cells installed on the upper surfaces of the hull. In addition to standard hover power, Cloudbase employs gravity compensation technology similar to the equipment installed on the Skyship One airship. Although it spends much of its time stationary, Cloudbase can be flown to any other location when required. Horizontal jets mounted beside the hover combines provide the thrust necessary for the carrier to move, and these are operated from Lieutenant Green's console in the control room. There are 2 aircraft hangars under the main flight deck, with space for a pair of Spectrum passenger jets and 2 Spectrum helicopters. Hangar number 1 is large enough to accommodate the Spectrum Magnicopter VIP transport. The Spectrum passenger jet, or SPJ, is a mid-size executive aircraft and the most common method of transport to and from Cloudbase. Capable of supersonic flight and armed with a single missile launcher, this efficient aircraft can carry 2 crew and up to 7 passengers in comfort. The Spectrum helicopter is a small maneuverable craft designed for search and escort duties. It is armed with a rapid-fire projectile launcher and can land on water thanks to its all-terrain pontoons. The chopper has been modified from factory specifications to allow it to reach a much greater maximum altitude for travel to and from Cloudbase. Although not used as frequently as other aircraft, the Magnacopter is a useful component of Spectrum's air arsenal. Designed for a crew of 5 and up to 20 passengers, and with space for a maximum security vehicle in its hold, the Magnacopter is essentially a flying fortress, used exclusively for transporting VIPs. Rounding out the base is the Angel Aircraft flight deck. This dedicated deployment area is elevated from the main launch strip and contains all critical services required to keep the Angel Interceptor Squadron ready for action. 3 interceptors are permanently kept ready on the deck, while 3 more are serviced in the hangars below. The Amber Room, a standby area for the Spectrum Angels, is located below the aircraft deck and is accessed by specially developed transport chairs. That brings us to the end of this briefing. Cloudbase continues to play a vital role in defending the Earth from the Mysterons. Hello, and welcome to another Century 21 Tech Talk briefing with me, Jeff Tracy. In this briefing, I'll be providing details about the operation and technical specifications of Zero X. The Zero X is the solar system exploration craft designed for travel to the 9 planets in our solar system. It is based at Glenfield Air Base in the United States. At an impressive 640 feet long, and with a wingspan of 436 feet, the Zero X is one of the largest horizontally launched aircraft ever designed. Like the early spacecraft of the 20th century, the Zero X is modular in design. I'll detail the individual components shortly, but first, I'll give you a rundown on the history and purpose of the craft. Since man's first lunar landings, humanity has yearned to explore the neighboring worlds in our solar system. After years of sending out automated rovers, it was decided that the next manned venture to the stars should focus on Mars, the red planet. To that end, a reusable spacecraft was designed. Unlike the craft of the previous century, the new ship would not be launched vertically like a rocket, but horizontally, like a conventional aircraft. The project was dubbed Zero X, as the design was submitted by Commander Wilbur Zero, and was the 10th entry received by the Solar System Exploration Project Development Team. Once the design was approved, construction began in earnest, alongside a whole new spaceport, which was built of the old Glenfield Air Force Base. The project moved along at near light speed, and in what seemed like no time at all, the Zero X and the new spaceport were completed. The maiden flight was scheduled for mid-2064, even in the midst of setting up our international rescue team. The boys and I couldn't help but get excited about the event. Unfortunately, disaster struck when a saboteur crippled the Zero X shortly after launch, causing the spacecraft to crash into the ocean. Thankfully, the crew were unharmed, having used their escape unit to eject from the doomed ship. With overwhelming support from the world government and many well-known philanthropists, you might be forgiven for thinking Zero X was the only project with its sights on Mars. But there were others. For example, Wilkin Healy, a private company based in the States, commissioned their own rocket in a bid to reach the red planet first. The Martian space probe was a far more conventional design, but it did have one unique feature: an automated countdown and launch. Delays in its construction put it in second place behind Zero X in the race to Mars. But after the Zero X sabotage incident, the Martian space probe had a clear lead. Taking advantage of the relative position of Mars to the Earth and the automated launch feature, the MSP was transported to a launch site in England in order to make a mid-2065 blastoff window. However, the Martian space probe also met with disaster. While crossing the Allington suspension bridge, which had been severely damaged by a storm, the colossal weight of the probe rocket and its transporter caused the bridge to collapse. 2 engineers were trapped on board, and the automated countdown was started by the impact. Luckily for them, international rescue was fully operational by that time, and we mounted a successful operation to retrieve the trapped men. By the middle of the following year, the Solar System Exploration Team had completed their investigation into the Zero X crash and decided that a second attempt to reach Mars would be made with one proviso. They asked international rescue to oversee the launch. While initially hesitant, I agreed to their request, and Thunderbirds 2 and 3 accompanied the Zero X as it reached orbit, despite a last-minute sabotage attempt. Before we get to what happened next, I guess I ought to tell you just how Zero X is assembled and launched. First, the main body of the craft rolls out of the purpose-built hangar and arrives at the assembly area. Next, it is raised on a series of hydraulic supports, and the aft radio-controlled lifting body is maneuvered underneath it. The Zero X is lowered onto the lifting body and clamped in place. A steel track is then deployed from a nearby hangar, and the forward lifting body is carried out to the Zero X. As it approaches the main ship, it is rotated into position before being lowered down and clamped in place on the fuselage. The wingtips containing the forward landing gear are folded into position, completing Stage 1 of the Zero X assembly. The second stage of assembly begins in the control tower, where the Glenfield controller gives a final briefing to the crew before initiating embarkation procedure. The flight crew's chairs rotate and carry them into the control deck of the Martian Excursion Vehicle, or MEV, which is docked to the front of the control tower. The MEV is lowered to the ground, where it is carried out to the waiting ship on a motorized platform. The platform raises the MEV until it locks onto the front of the Zero X, and the platform is removed. Finally, a helium-strengthened nose cone is attached to the front of the MEV, and the whole spacecraft is completed. Launch clearance is given, and the huge craft fires its engines and hurtles down the runway, lifting off into the air like an ordinary aircraft. As it reaches 125,000 feet and a speed of Mach 3.2, the lifting bodies are jettisoned and returned to Glenfield under remote control. Chemical rockets are fired, boosting the craft to 7,000 knots. The nose cone is jettisoned seconds later and follows the lifting bodies back to base. The Zero X achieves orbit soon after and switches to arc jet engines for the 6-week trip to the Red Planet. The crew for the historic first mission to Mars were Captain Paul Travers, Space Captain Greg Martin, Space Navigator Brad Newman, Dr. Ray Pierce, and Dr. Tony Grant. They were prepared for the unexpected, but nothing could prepare them for what they discovered. Reaching Mars on schedule, the Martian excursion vehicle detached from the main body of Zero X and descended to the surface. While studying strange rock formations, the MEV used its demolition cannon to break one apart for analysis. Unfortunately, the rock formations turned out to be snake-like life forms and returned the MEV's fire with powerful flaming balls of energy. Quickly outnumbered and outgunned, the MEV made an emergency launch and rendezvoused with Zero X before returning to Earth. The exchange of fire damaged the Zero X's radio control circuits. During re-entry, the fault caused the aft lifting body to smash into the main craft as it was about to reattach. The impact destroyed the escape circuit controls and made fitting a second lifting body impossible. Out of control and heading for a disaster, international rescue mobilized to save the crew, while local authorities evacuated the forecast crash location, an area called Craigsville. With seconds to spare, Allen was able to bypass the damaged control system and jettison the crew to safety. The Zero X crashed into Craigsville, causing widespread damage, but fortunately, the area had been fully evacuated, and no lives were lost. A further Zero X mission was mounted last year, when Spectrum requisitioned the newly built Zero X to investigate mysterious signals coming from Mars. According to the data recovered from the Zero X on its return to Glen Field, the MEV discovered an alien city. As they approached, they witnessed an unknown object, possibly a weapon, turning to face them. Captain Black, the officer in command, gave orders to open fire. The city was completely destroyed, but incredibly, it was reconstructed before their eyes. We now know that it was the city of the Mysterons, and that Captain Black's actions precipitated a war of nerves against the invisible enemy within, a war that continues to this day. That concludes the briefing on Zero X, a fantastic machine with a troubled history. Be sure to tune in next time for another Tech Talk briefing. Until then, take care, FAB.